Hi folks, I'm Craig Taylor, and as always a huge thank you for joining me here on my YouTube channel, The Bushcraft Padawan. To say I'm a little excited today could be something of an understatement. Why? Well, let me take you back a few months. Regular viewers and subscribers will know I'm a big fan of Paul Kirtley, and I listen to his Ask Paul Kirtley series and watch his videos. And in one of his Ask Paul Kirtley videos, he laid down a challenge, a competition to his viewers. And he asked people to contribute an Ask Paul Kirtley question using Instagram video. So I quickly grabbed my phone and recorded a video and uploaded it and kind of forgot about it. Several episodes later, there I am on the screen in Paul's video asking the question, and I then find out I was actually the first person to contribute a question via Instagram video, and I won a prize. And the prize was, wait for it, a prize was a day out in the woods with the man himself. A whole day with Paul Kirtley in the woods doing, you know, bushcrafty stuff. I mean, it was fantastic. I'd won that before I actually went on a course with Paul a few months ago, back in April. So not only have I had the opportunity to sort of spend a week with him and his team from Frontier, but I've also won this fantastic opportunity to spend an extra day with him. So we've got a few things lined up that I want to go through. Some of them are going over things that were covered in the elementary course. Some of them are new things that I want to have a look at. So let's have a look and see how the day unfolds. I'm back again, folks. So it's been a few days since I recorded that introduction to the video that you saw a few seconds ago. I would have loved to have done this kind of summary at the end of the day with Paul, but it was very late when we finished. I didn't get away till about 8 o'clock at night, and I met him at 9:15 in the morning, so it was a busy, full day. So I didn't get the chance to do it at the end of the day, so I've made a few notes, as is my wont, and I'm going to sort of share with you now what we went through during the day. So I met up with Paul. We drove onto the estate and the area where we were going to, you know, sort of spend the day. We talked about what I wanted to get out of the day, and I think we both agreed that a good starting point would be to go back over my knife sharpening skills. I went on the elementary course knowing almost nothing. I was able to achieve some good progress on that course, but I kind of felt like I wasn't quite there yet. So we spent quite a bit of time in the early stages of that day going through sharpening again. So Paul spoke to me about how to sharpen a convex type of knife, which mine is. The blade bows out ever so slightly, not that you really notice it, but it does. So I have a convex blade. So he talked to me about the subtleties of sharpening that. We went through using the Japanese water stones that I've got. We spent quite a bit of time, and what he made me realise was that I had been doing some cursory sharpening with the coarser stones and then rushing through to get to the finer stones. And what he said was, all you're doing then is you're kind of refining a not so sharp blade. You need to get it into the shape that you need it to be in. You need to get it sharp with the coarse stone and then refine it even more. And I hadn't been doing that. I'd been rushing ahead to get to the refining, to get to that honing of the edge. So we spent a lot of time with the coarser of the stones that I have in my small collection, and then he showed me how to work through. It was also interesting to note that I had been using a very, and I think you see them in a lot of the knife sharpening videos, a very fluid, beginning to end, sweeping the blade through the sharpening stone and across the sharpening stone. And actually Paul employed more of a backwards and forwards sort of motion, which on first glance looked somewhat haphazard to me. But actually when he showed me in slow time what he was doing, there was absolutely still a process taking place. It just wasn't, I think, obvious, or it wasn't as obvious as the beginning to end, or the heel to the tip of the blade sweeping through of the blade. So I'm going to use that process from now on. I kind of liked that. We then went on to stropping, and Paul shared with me the kind of very small stropping block that he carries around with him, leather on one side, some wet and dry on the other, and also shared with me the stropping compound that he uses. So we used it on my knife during the day, and subsequently, since that day finished, in other words yesterday, I've gone out to Halfords and actually bought some and made myself a version of what he's carrying around with him, albeit only with leather on at the moment. And I've started to use that in the house to hone the edge and to strop the edge, and it seems to be doing a very good job. So even just in that first few hours of the day where we spoke about knife sharpening, he's accelerated me along that learning curve above and beyond what I've been able to pick up online and also during his elementary course as well. So it was time very much well spent at the beginning of that day. One of the other aspects that I asked if we could cover off was to take another look at bow drill, fire by friction using bow drill, but also to weave into that tree and plant identification. Unsurprisingly, for those of you that are thinking what he's talking about, check out the playlist up here and it'll make a lot more sense, to weave in tree and plant ID and material selection. So we went for a wander around the woods, quite a wander we went on, covered a fair old distance, just looking for material to make the bow drill set itself, and then also tinders. The day that we were out there, it had been really, really wet, a lot of rain in the preceding days. It was quite a damp, dreary, drizzly sort of day while we were there, so everything was soaked through. The dry bracken that we'd been using back in April, that wasn't dry bracken anymore. So we needed to sort of look for stuff that would stand up to the damp air in the preceding few days. So what Paul took me through was, we went for a wander round, and we explored honeysuckle. We found once I'd got my eye in, we found an area that was rife with honeysuckle. So he showed me how to peel away those flaking pieces of bark and exterior and collect those, and within quite a short space of time I was able to get an absolute pocket full of that, which I stored next to my body to start drying it out. So that was something, I'd been aware you could do that. I'd made notes about being able to do that back in April on the elementary course, but I hadn't actually gone out and done it. So it was another great opportunity to turn the theory that I'd been aware of and actually be in a situation where I could and did put it into practice. So again, another real world application ticked off, not just the theory covered off. So we gathered quite a bit of that, and we also spent a lot of time wandering around looking for some sweet chestnuts that was fallen, that was rotting, but was in just the right state to be able to take off that fibrous inner bark, which I've heard a lot about, and to be able to collect that. And we didn't have a great deal of success, to be perfectly honest, at the beginning. Everything was either alive or it was absolutely rotten to the core and just disintegrated as we were trying to peel it off. And lo and behold, just as we were sort of getting back to our tarp area that we'd set up, there was a piece that had fallen at the side of the road. We spotted it, went away and collected a heck of a lot. What was really interesting about doing this was, the logic tells me that when you're looking for tinder, you need to be looking for stuff that is bone dry or very close to being dry, because clearly you want it to be able to burst into flames, you want it to be able to ignite. And what Paul actually explained was that the best condition for collecting sweet chestnut in a bark, and possibly any other bark, he didn't say that, we were focusing specifically on sweet chestnut, was when it was sopping wet. When you could almost wring it out in your hand as we were peeling it off. It was very wet. It clearly wasn't going to be an option to use that immediately. It would have needed some extra processing, some drying out, which we started to do during the day, and subsequently, since I've been home, I've had the ability to keep it out of the moist air and indoors, and it's within 24 hours now, it's paper dry. I'm sure it would take a spark or an ember very, very quickly. So again, another interesting insight. We know about fibrous inner bark. I'd never actually ever bothered to go and collect it. Now I have, and I'd have always probably tried collecting it when it was dry or felt dry, which would have been the worst condition to actually collect and harvest it. So again, all of these little jigsaw puzzle pieces falling into place, yet more of them. While we were out doing some tree and plant ID, I'd also mentioned to Paul that I'd love to have a go at, or at least take a closer look at, if not do it myself, with the hand drill. So we went and found some elder that Paul was aware of. So we processed some elder from, we processed some very straight pieces of wood from that elder. And whilst we were there, Paul spotted some fungi fungi growing on the elder, and identified it as Jew's ear. So I got to take a look at that. I think very easy to distinguish. Grows on elder trees, so there's another useful identification feature. And I think it's one of very few fungi that I'd be confident of walking up to, pointing at it and saying, that is the fungus that is commonly known as Jew's ear. And it's also edible as well. So, you know, when I'm out on my own, maybe I'll be brave enough to actually try that for myself, who knows. But we harvested some shoots, some branches, some thin branches from that to hopefully experiment with hand drill with later on in the day. So once I'd got my knife in good condition, once we'd collected the material that we would need to turn an ember, hopefully, into a small flame and then to a larger flame and into a fire. Once we'd got all of that prepped, I actually started creating my bow drill set. We went out and we found some sycamore. I'd never had any success with sycamore. I tried it and not had any success. I tried willow and had success. I tried pine and not had any success. So I thought, you know, why don't I persevere? Let's try sycamore again. We found some sycamore that was in the right condition eventually, and I started processing that down. Paul showed me how to use my axe to help process the half board down, but it was interesting to see his body positioning and how he used the axe and how he just used almost a flicking motion of the wrist and allowed the pivot, if you like, of the axe itself and the head to do most of the hard work. So again, had I been on my own, I'd have probably just found some wood and battened it down with my knives. It was good to get used to using the axe in a different way. I then went on to process the actual spindle itself. I cheated a little and brought a bearing block, a hand block that I'd used in my elementary course that worked really well. I brought that with me, but I also fashioned the bow from scratch as well. So 99.9% of that bow drill set we sourced, we identified, we sourced, we harvested it into the right condition. And then of course push comes to shove and it's actually putting it all into practice. And Paul, you know, I had Paul by my side, one-to-one tuition, give me a few little coaching points about where to position the hand and the feet. Everything that had been mentioned on the elementary, but just some little tweaks here and there that, you know, that I kind of forgotten about, or there hadn't been a factor back in April when I did the elementary. And I got going with the bow drill, and as much to my surprise as anybody else's, I think, I actually got an ember on the very first attempt at the bow drill. It was, I don't know, I'm still pinching myself now to actually think, did I really get an ember on the first attempt? And I've watched the video back and I did, and there it is, it's glowing. You can see me kind of with this dumbass look on my face staring at it thinking, did I just do that on the first attempt? So everything up to that point had gone swimmingly well, prepared the materials, harvested the bow drill set, created the bow drill set, gone through the bow drill motion, got an ember, brilliant. I failed to blow it into flame though. It didn't work. Paul believes that I didn't give it long enough to consolidate, for the ember to consolidate. I think he's absolutely right. I think also, with the benefit of hindsight, we both, or I thought, that the honeysuckle was dry enough. Paul suspects actually, as a result of later on in the afternoon, that it may not have been dry enough. It may have needed longer to dry out. So, you know, a couple of factors there. What I was really pleased about, you know, putting aside the fact that I wasn't able myself to create fire by friction, I was able to fashion a bow drill set. I was able to create the ember. Other factors, albeit very important factors, conspired to not allow me to do that. So I've learned from that mistake, or those mistakes. And Paul and I said during the day several times, the learning is in the wobbles. The learning is when you get it wrong and you fail and it hurts, or you go hungry or cold, or you feel disappointed. I can certainly align with that sort of way of learning. I don't always learn a great deal or remember a great deal when everything's just gone swimmingly, when everything's fallen into my lap. I don't necessarily remember that. So, you know, if you're one of those that gets things wrong and fails at things, don't, you know, there's real learning in that failure, so you know, don't take it to heart. Look at me preaching on like I'm your mother. So what else did we, so I had a go at the bow drill, didn't work. I then tried many more times. My body aches from almost head to toe with what felt like continual bow drilling. There's not a great deal left of my bow drill spindle. It got so short, in fact, that I couldn't use it, because when I was attempting to put my bearing block on the top of it, my boot was actually in the way. The eyelets on my boot was in the way. It became that short I couldn't get the pressure because of my foot being in the way. So there's a couple of learning points from that Paul brought out at the end. One, your bow drill set is in its best possible condition the first time you use it. After that, it starts to deteriorate because you're burning it away, if you like. The friction is eradicating it. Get it right first time. And the second thing that I absolutely feel, I am in the best condition the first time you attempt the bow drill. You know, the aches aren't there, my knees are shot to pieces anyway, they're not complaining that much. There's no lactic acid, I'm not out of breath. For those of you that have never done bow drill or find it very easy, you may not understand what I'm getting at, but for those of you watching that have tried bow drill and have felt the burn and the pain, you'll know exactly what I mean. So everything is in the best condition the first time that you attempt your bow drill, so get it all right from start to finish, including blowing it into flame the very first time you do it. Huge learning point for me there. Again, step back into the cold light of day. Those things are obvious. They're not as obvious when you're actually out there doing it for real until you become accustomed to it, clearly. One of the aspects of the day that I found really interesting, and it was quite unintentional really, was we had the video camera running, which you've seen some of the cutaway shots as I've been speaking over the past few minutes. You've seen some of those cutaway shots. We had the video camera running quite a lot. And what was quite interesting was that bow drill is clearly, amongst other things, technique is a huge part in being successful. So there were times when I was bow drilling and Paul would give me some feedback, or he'd tell me that the spindle had moved away from the upright, it was slanting towards me or to the side. And I couldn't really see that. I was taking Paul's word for it. Of course I would, and I'd adjust my position and I'd move away again. Watching that video footage back though, I have been able to see exactly what he means. Quite clearly I can see that spindle moving away from vertical. So it was a really interesting exercise to video record myself, to watch that back and to identify any faults in technique. So we brought the day to an end probably about 7:30, 8:15 at night. It was a long day, it was a very fruitful day. It was a great day. We brought the day to an end around then. I took away a piece of the sycamore from the limb that we took to make the bow drill, and I'm going to go away and I'm going to fashion another spindle. I'm going to keep the hearth and the bow and the bearing block. I'm going to fashion another spindle and give it another go, with the benefit of spending several hours undertaking it with Paul and watching the video back to review the technique and so on. And then we parted away and off we went on our merry way. What an awesome day out. What a wonderful opportunity to take part in that competition, to be successful, and then to spend that day with Paul. It was a great day. Paul, if you're watching this, I don't have enough thumbs up to give you enough thumbs up, but a huge thank you from me to you for taking time out of what I know is an incredibly packed diary to spend the day with me. And to anybody watching this that's for whatever reason not heard of Paul, I'm sure you have, or is considering how they might accelerate themselves along that learning curve, please do check out his website. He's got ranges of courses in terms of the complexity, in terms of the subject, in terms of the duration. He's got a range of options out there, and I can't stress enough how much of a personable guy Paul is, how knowledgeable he is clearly, but how good he is at being able to convey that to people at all levels of expertise and skills and move them along that learning curve. He does face-to-face, he does some online programs as well. I'm sure there's something in there for everybody. So if you've not yet checked that out, I can't unfortunately link to his site from this particular video pane, but if you check out the description below, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube, you'll see a link out to his site there. Please do check out his courses page. Once again, Paul, big thumbs up. And for those of you that have stuck with this to the end, hopefully you've gained an insight into just how excited I was and still am at being able to spend that day with Paul. Hopefully you've maybe gained something from it as well. If you have, please do give it a thumbs up. If you feel like there's someone in your network that would benefit from this, you know what to do with that share button. Go away and share it. And if you're not yet a subscriber, and I say this after every video, thank you so much to those people that are. If you're not yet a subscriber and you fancy checking out some of my other videos in the future and you don't want to miss out, click that subscribe button. It'll be appearing in this bottom corner of the screen here now, and you'll be able to keep abreast and updated of all my future videos. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Thanks.